Hello, you are welcome to Employment Law class. Today we look at Unit 6, which is on overview of the law of tort. Specifically, we look at Section 1, which is on nature and meaning of torts. Session objectives. By the end of this session, you should be able to define and explain what is meant by torts, identify the elements of a tort action. What is tort? Basically, tort is a private wrong or concern with a body of private wrong. So according to Professor Winfield, he stated tortious liability arises from a breach of duty primarily fixed by law, notwithstanding that tort concern with a body of private wrong. Sometimes it will be a public wrong, especially when it constitutes a crime. The tort law is the body of law that enables people to seek compensation. So what you are saying is that the purpose of tort law is to help the victim to seek for compensation for the harm caused to him by the tortfeasor. Now, the tortfeasor is the one who commits a wrong on the victim. So, because of the harm being caused the victim must be compensated. You should also understand, before you can bring an action for tort, we have different categories of tortious action. But basically, you need to prove three elements. You need to prove three elements. The first one is that the tortfeasor, which is the same as the defendant, the one who committed the wrong or who committed the harm, is the tortfeasor or the defendant. He or she had a duty to act or to behave in a certain way. However, he breached that duty. He breached that duty. And for that matter, the plaintiff must prove that the behavior demonstrated by the tortfeasor did not conform to the duty owed to the plaintiff. So the plaintiff here will be the victim, the one who has been harmed or injured, the victim. Now he's going to prove that the tortfeasor or the defendant failed to comply or discharge his or her duty of care or duty to act in that particular manner, because the tortfeasor or the defendant failed to discharge its duty onto the plaintiff, who is the victim. The plaintiff must prove that because of that he suffered some injury or loss. So when you are able to prove these elements, there's high possibility that your action in tort will be successful. Now, as we said, there are damages that is awarded if the plaintiff, being the victim, is able to prove his or her case. Some of these damages include reimbursement for property loss or damage. So if you damage someone's property by either intentional or by negligent acts, the court can award damage against you to pay for the property or the item loss. You also have medical expenses. Here, when you cause injury to the person, there's high likelihood that the court may order you to pay for the medical expenses of the person. You may also be asked to pay for the pain or suffering that you have made the person to go through, and there will be also payment of loss of earning capacity, especially if the person is a breadwinner, and for that matter, he could have worked for several years. However, because of the injury that you caused or the defendant caused, he cannot longer work again. The court can compute a certain number of years as a damage against the defendant. Punitive damages. With this damage, the court award it to serve as a deterrent to other people from committing the same injury or wrong. So remember, tort is basically about committing wrong against another person. You should also know that tort can be either intentional. It can be either intentional act or negligent act. Intentional act is whereby you have purported to do. A typical example is the issue of battery. Battery here simply refer to unpermitted touching. Unpermitted touching. You intentionally touch people's body without their consent. For instance, if A keeps on touching the buttocks of B, who is a lady, it constitutes, without her consent, it constitutes a battery, and it's an intentional tort looking from the way A acted. Negligent act will constitute a situation whereby you had a duty of care towards the person, but you failed to discharge that particular duty of care. For instance, those into manufacturing, or let me take a typical example. If you are into preparing sobolo and you fail to ensure that nothing bad will enter the bottle, but for instance, if accidentally a snail gets into the sobolo bottle and you fill it without you knowing, and another person buys and the person gets injured or falls sick, because you had a duty to ensure that the bottle does not contain any defect in terms of manufacturing of the sobolo, you'll be held liable for tort of negligence. You should also understand that the parties involved in tortious action, we have the victim, who is the plaintiff, that is the one whom the injured harm has been caused to. You also have the defendant, who is the tortfeasor, the one who caused the harm. Remember, when the harm or the wrong is caused against the state becomes the plaintiff, and it is the Attorney General who will prosecute that case. As I indicated, you want to differentiate between crime and tort. Crime is different from tort, however, they share certain similarities. A crime is a wrong arising from violation of public duty. So when you breach public duty, it constitutes a crime, especially where the offense for committing that crime has been stated as well. If you look at Article 19(5) and 19(11), you will see a similar provision. Now we have a tort is a wrong arising from the violation of private duty. Again, as we said, a tort can be a private wrong or public wrong. Public wrong comes in when it's based on individuals, not against the state. But you should also know that it could be possible that a crime can also constitute a tort. A crime can also constitute a tort. Now let's try to cite a typical example. Assault is a tort, but it's also crime under our criminal code. If you look at section 84 of Act 29, assault is a crime. Notwithstanding assault is a crime, which is a public wrong, assault is also a tort as a private wrong. In this session, we have attempted to explain what is meant by tort and the elements of tort action. We also tried to differentiate between a crime and a tort and also explain tortious liability. Thank you and have a nice day.